Good evening, classmates. This is Chris Ochs, here for public speaking final exam. So let's start off with who is the most improved speaker in our class. Now, from our informative speech to our persuasive speech, it is my opinion everyone took the critiques from their classmates to heart, learned from them, and improved from the one speech to the next. Now, while there were a couple people that really stepped their game up, the person I believe who improved the most was Babak Salami. If you compare his first speech, the informative speech, to his second speech, the persuasive speech, there is a recognizable difference. In his informal speech, it was very short. He seemed to be reading off to the side, not maintaining eye contact with his audience, and had no use of hand gestures throughout the speech. In his persuasive speech, it was well thought out and researched. Midway through, he really started using hand gestures. He kept good eye contact throughout the speech. The only negative you could say regarding his persuasive speech was the location itself. There was a lot of distractions regarding wind, a plane flew by, I believe. Even though I was jealous of the atmosphere and the location he was in, it wasn't a good place for the speech. But overall, I thought Babak vastly improved from one speech to the next, and because of this, he is, in my opinion, by far the most improved speaker in our class. Now, who had the best research this semester in our class? Again, there were a few classmates that really stood out and were close in this category, but in the end, I believe Jordan Jones was the person who had the best research in our class. Jordan, in my position, presented two speeches that were very intriguing, well thought out and researched. His thoughts were well organized throughout the speech. His first speech, the informative speech, was in educating the audience on cybercrimes and how prevalent they've become in our society. His second speech, his persuasive speech, he looked to persuade his audience on the benefits of embryonic stem cell research. In both speeches, Jordan demonstrated a thorough job of research on the subjects he chose. And not only do you see this, but you also see improvements he made from one speech to the next. In my opinion, overall, Jordan put forth the required effort of what should be expected from a college public speaking class. And because of that, he got best research. Now, the person who had the best style this semester, in my opinion, the person who had the best style, one you would imagine would be how a speaker should present themselves, would go to Matthew Tyson. Matthew was the most polished of anybody in the class by far. Not only did he have both speeches practically memorized, he had the whole ensemble. He stood in front of a podium as a speaker would. He used visuals. He maintained great eye contact with his audience from start to finish. And he spoke with a clear voice, good pace, and great posture. His first speech, his informative speech, was factual information about Dwayne Wade, on and off the court. The speech was very good from the beginning to end. His second speech, the persuasive speech, was concussions in the NFL. Both were well researched and well thought out. He even improved from the informative speech to the persuasive speech by incorporating some visuals. The only area for improvement I really saw with Matthew's speeches, and I believe I commented on this, was if he got in the habit of using different ranges of his voice. Seemed a little monotone at times, and if he was to change the ranges in his voice, change it up a little bit, it would make a significant impact on his speeches. This is a minute fix. It could have a major impact, but in the end, he did an amazing job. I mean, he was great from beginning to end in every aspect you could look at. So great job, Matthew. In my opinion, you ran away with best style this semester. So now for me, how did I perform this semester? The dreaded talk about me time. Well, I'm probably my own worst critic. Before I start digging to myself, I want to thank all my classmates for your critiques this semester. I did take them to heart, and hopefully it's apparent in my speeches. Overall, I think I did pretty well in this class from the standpoint of preparation and performance. I believe I did improve from one speech to the next, and that will continue, as there's always room for improvement, and I truly believe that. If you ever get to the point where you think you are as good as you're going to be, you've shot yourself in the foot, and let your ego get in the way of becoming even better than you can be. You should always look for improvement. To give an example of some of the improvements I made, I'll start with my very first speech, our introductory speech. In that speech, I was sitting. I used ums, and let's sees a few times. By the second speech, I was standing, cut the ums and uhs and let's sees down to, I believe, one By the third speech, my posture was better, I spoke with a clear voice, and I had no use of ums, uhs, or let's sees in my speech. Now I know I do have some improvements to make. After reviewing my own speech videos, I realized there were times I definitely had my head down, perhaps reading too much instead of focusing on my audience. My posture could have been better at times as well, and use of hand gestures could have also been a factor as well in improving. Now, as far as my preparation and research, I feel I did a pretty thorough job considering the time we were given. If this wasn't a 6-week course and we were allotted more time, perhaps I could have done a little more research and had a few more resources to pull from. Preparations for the speeches themselves is where I could improve the most. I have a challenging schedule as I have to be disciplined with my time to fit everything in. I work during the day, I take care of my daughter at night. When my wife heads to work, I feed my daughter, I bathe her, and then I get her ready for bed. And after that, I have just a few hours left to accomplish the work I need before I need to go to sleep myself. So while I feel good about my speeches, I know I could have improved with a bit more preparation. I went over each of these several times, but I know a few more practices would have made them even better. My preparations could have and should have included better posture, not leaning on the counters, better use of hand gestures. I didn't use them at all at times in some of my speeches. The biggest improvement would have been for more preparation would have been my eye contact. While it was good, it could have been much better. I believe I looked at my notes a little too often. And looking at your notes is okay, but staring at them and reading them down is not when it comes to a speech. As far as examining this course, I got to say I really enjoyed the course. As far as the schedule and the way the class was set up, I don't know if you could improve on anything there. I think it's pretty well set up in such a short time period. The only area for possible improvements that I see in this class is maybe changing up the deadlines just on the speeches themselves. Having them at midnight is great, but for someone like me who's very busy during the day, and then at night I've got a few hours to take care of my daughter and put her to sleep, and then I've got a few hours for me. When you're dealing with technical situations or applications, it's not always your fault. For example, on our persuasive speech, my YouTube upload, it took over 3.5 hours. And the first time I did my speech was at 6 p.m. I thought it was all set. I had uploaded it from my phone. Well, I should say from my wife's phone, because my phone is acting crazy. But from my wife's phone, she went off to work. It still hadn't uploaded. I had to physically drive down to her work. I had to have a friend watch my daughter while I went down there, picked up her phone, got it back here. I thought it wasn't going to be an issue. It ended up taking another 3 hours to upload that video, which caused it to be slightly late. Unfortunately, I know the rules and how we set up our class, but, unfortunately that's something that is out of my control or anybody else that would be in a similar situation. So if we move the deadline to 8 a.m., I still believe everybody would accomplish their speeches the night before, but in case of any technical issues such as I came across, they would have time to get it uploaded in a proper time, proper fashion. And the only other thing I could recommend is on this final exam. I think the final exam, as far as what is required and what's expected, should be on the syllabus. I was completely unaware of what this final exam was going to be about. I actually thought it was going to be some sort of multiple choice questionnaire, and luckily I clicked on the final exam thing today, and I know I'm not as smart as everybody, so everybody else probably figured this out, but I luckily clicked on that today midway through the day and realized that our final exam was actually another speech. I wish I would have had more time to see this, review it, and plan. Preparation obviously would have been a lot better, and speech would have probably been a lot better in turn as well. Other than that, I think the class is set up very well. Those are my only two little nitpicky things I would say. And as far as anything other than technical issues, which I mentioned are at times just out of our control, I believe the class has been structured very well, especially for a shortened semester. So bringing this to a close, again, I really enjoyed this class. I really enjoyed everybody's critiques, and I thank my classmates for their critiques and helping me improve my public speaking skills. And thank you, Dr. Maple, for answering my questions when I asked in a timely fashion. This is Chris Ochs signing off. Thank you.